Shalom, Mashpaka. Welcome back to part 3 of this teaching, of this message. We are living tabernacles, where it has been commanded that the light is to burn continually. And as mentioned in the previous 2 messages, that if you have not watched part 1 and you have not watched part 2, then stop this video right here and go back to part 1, start at part 1, and then watch part 2, and then come back and watch part 3. I believe that this is going to be the last message. I think this is going to be part 3, 3 of 3. I think this is going to be part 3 of 3. So picking this up again, if you haven't watched part 1 and part 2, go back and begin at part 1, and then watch part 2, and then pick this up at part 3. So beginning now in part 3, we start with the book of Hosea, commonly called Hosea. Hosea, the 2nd chapter. I'm going to read verse 1 through 23. Beginning at verse 1. Say to your brothers, O my people, and to your sisters, O compassionate ones, strive with your mother, strive, for she is not my wife. Listen, very foundational. She is not my wife, nor am I her husband. Let her put away her whorings from her face, and her adulteries from between her breasts, lest I strip her naked, lest I strip her naked, and shall set her up as on the day she was born, and shall make her like a wilderness, and shall set her like a dry land, and shall put her to death with thirst. Now here, what I want to bring your attention to, it says, lest I strip her naked. Lest I strip her naked. That's the right of a husband. This is what Abba needs us to understand. This is the right of a husband. You see, a husband, in accordance with Torah, is commanded to provide 3 things for his wife. He is to provide food, clothing, and conjugal rights. He is to provide food, clothing, and conjugal rights. And so what Abba wants us to know and understand is that he is Torah. And because he is Torah, he must operate in Torah because he is Torah. It makes no, it doesn't logically make sense for him to be Torah and not keep Torah. He is Torah. And so he doesn't ask us to do anything that he himself doesn't do himself. And so in the Torah declares that a husband is to provide 3 things for his Aisha, for his wife. Food, Abba provides our food. Clothing, he clothes us. And conjugal rights. He provides conjugal rights when his root comes to dwell in us, when he enters us as a man enters a woman. When he enters us, he provides the conjugal rights. When he communes with us. When he communes with us, indeed, when a man communes with a woman, when he becomes one flesh with her, this is a representation of Abba, of our husband, entering us by way of his root. By way of his root. And so what Abba wants to show us here, is that when he says, lest I strip you naked, and this goes back what he's been telling us throughout this teaching. If we're not standing on the rock, if we're not laid on that foundation of righteousness, if we're not standing on that rock, then we are still naked. We're still naked. We are naked because he's not our husband. Unless we are one in him and us and standing on that rock, he's not our husband, meaning that he does not have to provide our clothing. He does not have to cover us. He does not have to cover us in his righteousness, which means that we're still naked and we're still ashamed. We're still ashamed. We're still naked and ashamed. This is what he did to Adam and Kua in the very beginning. As their husband, he did what? He covered their shame. He covered their crime. He covered their crime. And so he clothed them. He slew 2 lambs and he covered their crime. He covered their shame. He covered their crime. He covered their nakedness and their crookedness. But if he's not our husband, in accordance with Torah, he does not have to provide our food or our clothing or our conjugal rights. And so, again, if we're not laid upon the foundation of righteousness, whereby being laid upon the rock of Yahushua HaMashiach, meaning that now he's not our husband, he does not have to clothe us. And that means that we're still naked, we're still wearing dirty garments, we're still unrighteous, we're still crooked, and we're still criminals. And so he must become our husband. He must become our husband whereby he covers our crime. This is the job of a husband. A husband covers the shame of his wife. A husband covers the shame of his wife. What shame? The shame that her mother Kua did. And so we are to cover our Isha's shame. Indeed, love covers a multitude of crime. Love covers a multitude of crime. And so this is what a husband does. But if we are not founded as living tabernacles, built upon the foundation of righteousness, which is has been manifested in Yahushua HaMashiach, whereby he now becomes our husband, he does not have to cover our nakedness. He does not have to cover us in his righteousness, because we're not founded on righteousness. And if we're not founded on righteousness, being founded in him, being rooted in him, him being in us, us being in him, he does not have to clothe us. And thus we do not take on the appearance of Zachariah. Well, we do take on the appearance of Zachariah, but we take on the appearance of Yahushua in the 3rd chapter of Zechariah, in that we're still wearing filthy garments. We're still naked. We're still crooked, because he's not our husband. He's not our husband. And so we must be laid on that foundation of righteousness in order for our husband to cover our nakedness. Otherwise, we're still naked. We're still naked, and that tabernacle is being laid, has been laid upon the wrong foundation. It is not being laid upon the round foundation of righteousness. You see, Hashatan, he will cover you, but he will cover you with physical clothing, because he can't cover you in righteousness, because he's not righteous. He can't cover you in righteousness, because he's not righteousness. And unless you are either laid upon one or two foundations, either you're the first Adam or the second Adam, either you are laid upon the foundation of righteousness or the foundation of unrighteousness. If you're laid upon the foundation of unrighteousness, whether that means you keep trying to keep Torah on your own, absent the Hamashiach, or whether that means you're a Christian profession that you believe in the Hamashiach, which you really don't, because if you believe in the Hamashiach, you obey his commandments, and his commandments and Yahuwah's commandments are one and the same, because they are Akkad. And so you're either laid upon the foundation of righteousness or unrighteousness. Either your husband is Hashatan or your husband is Yahushua HaMashiach, and who is synonymous with Yahuwah. They're one and the same. And if he's not your husband, our husband, then he does not have to clothe us, which means that we're not clothed in his righteousness, which means that we are still naked. We have no righteousness of our own. We have no righteousness of our own. Reading on, lest I strip her naked, and shall set her up as on the day she was born, and shall make her like a wilderness, and shall set her like a dry land, and shall put her to death with thirst. And I shall not have compassion on her children, for they are the children of whorings. For their mother has whored. She who conceived them has acted shamelessly. She's naked. Her nakedness is exposed. For she said, I go after my lovers who give me my bread and my water, my wool and my linen, and my oil and my drink. Therefore, see, I am hedging up your way with thorns, and I shall wall her in so that she does not find her path. And she shall pursue her lovers, but not overtake them, and shall seek them, but not find them. Then she shall say, let me go and return to my first husband, for then it was better for me than now. And she did not acknowledge that I gave her grain, and new wine, and oil, and increased her silver and gold, which they prepared for Baal. Indeed, this is what a husband does. He takes care of his Haisha. He gives her food. He gives her clothing. He gives her conjugal rights. He gives her silver. This is what a husband does. And indeed, if he is not our husband, if we're not founded on the foundation of the rock, if this tabernacle, if this living tabernacle in which Yahuwah or Yun is supposed to dwell, in which the light is to burn continually, if it's not laid on that foundation of truth, if it's not laid on the truth that he is the Hamashiach, the son of the living Elohim, and whereby it being not laid on that truth, meaning he's not our husband, meaning that we're not laid upon the foundation of righteousness, which means that we're not clothed in righteousness because he is not our husband, which means that we are still naked because he doesn't have to clothe us because he's not our husband. Because he's not our husband unless we are founded on the foundation of righteousness, which is manifested in Yahushua HaMashiach. Therefore, I shall turn back and shall take my grain in its time, and my new wine in its appointed time. And I shall take away my wool and my linen, covering her nakedness. Do you hear? And I shall take away my wool and my linen, covering her nakedness. Indeed, she became naked again because he divorced her. We're talking about Ephraim right here, right now. We're talking about Ephraim, but this is applicable to us all. This is applicable to us all because we have one husband. We have one Aish. And if he is not our husband, who was manifested in flesh in the person of Yahushua HaMashiach, and we are not rooted and grounded on that foundation, and understanding that we have been betrothed to him, that his shed blood has betrothed us, which means that he is our husband. The only thing that needs to take place is what? The consummation of the marriage and the wedding feast. This is what's going to happen in the first resurrection, the wedding feast, the marriage supper of the Lamb. Nevertheless, he is our husband. He is our husband, provided that we have received him as our Hamashiach. We believe in his shed blood. We have been reestablished on the stone, on the rock that has been laid in Zion. We have been immersed in his set-apart name, whereby washing away our crime, whereby washing away our leprosy, whereby washing away our running sores, whereby washing away the dead things that we have touched, whereby washing away our menstrual cycle, and then having been reborn to the newness of life as new creatures. Indeed, it is written, if anyone be in Hamashiach, he is a new creature, a new creation. Old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new. We become born from above. We become our seed of the second Adam. After which we shall receive the Ruach HaKadosh, whereby now we have become betrothed to him. We have become his wives. Otherwise, you're not his wife. If you're not founded on this foundation, you're not his wife, and you're still naked. You're still naked. You're still bearing your shame. You're still bearing your crookedness. He's not bearing it because you're not standing on the rock. You understand? It is the foundation that bears our crookedness, that bears our shame. It is the foundation that bears the weight. It is the foundation that bears, it is the foundation that bears the crookedness, that bears the shame, that bears the weight of our transgression. If we're not standing on that foundation which has been laid in righteousness, then we're not clothed in righteousness because we're not married to him. And then that means that he does not have to clothe a woman that is not his wife. A man does not have to clothe a woman that is not his wife. Reading here, therefore I shall turn back and shall take my grain in its time and my new wine in its appointed time, and I shall take away my wool and my linen, covering her nakedness. Indeed, if you're one of those so-called Hebrew Israelites that don't believe in Hamashiach, you're still naked. You're still naked. You're still crooked. You're still crime-filled. I don't care how much Torah that you profess to obey or that you attempt to obey. And if you're a Christian who profess to Hamashiach but don't keep his commandments, don't keep the Torah, then you too are naked. You too are naked because a decent wife, a good wife, does what? She obeys her husband. She obeys her husband. She keeps the marriage vows. She keeps the marriage vows, which is his righteous Torah. She keeps the vows. So neither one of you are married to Yahuwah. Meaning that you are still in your blood, the blood of your menstrual cycle. Meaning that you are still naked. Meaning that you're still dirty. You're still crooked. You're still crime-ridden. You're still crime-ridden, and you have no righteousness of your own. You have none. You have none. And now I shall uncover, listen, and now I shall uncover her shame. He made her naked. He made Ephraim naked. He issued her a certificate of divorce, and he made her naked. He made her naked. But again, this is not only applicable to Ephraim, but to everybody outside of covenant, marriage covenant with Yahuwah. Everybody who has not been reestablished on the foundation of righteousness, which is manifested in Yahushua HaMashiach. I don't care if you are Ephraim, who received the certificate of divorce in 722 BCE, or if you're Yahudah, who was put away. There's a difference between being put away and being divorced. Yahudah has been put away, not divorced, but put away. And the only reason that Yahudah wasn't divorced is because the HaMashiach had to come through Yahudah. And because if he had divorced Yahudah, then his promise to Daud and that he would never lack a man to sit on the throne, it would not have come into fulfillment. It would not have come into fulfillment. But the text declares that Yahudah was even more treacherous than his sister or her sister Ephraim, even more treacherous than her. And so the only reason that she wasn't divorced, Yahudah wasn't divorced, because of the promise, the everlasting promise that Yahuwah made to Dawood, that he would never lack a man to sit on the throne. And because if he had divorced Yahudah, then there wouldn't have been any way in which the Hamashiach could be born, or could be manifest. But here, he exposed Ephraim's nakedness. He divorced her. He divorced her indeed. Yahudah, you too. You too are naked. You too are naked. You too are naked. Why are you naked? Because you have committed whoredom against your husband. When he put us away, we went and we laid with many husbands. We went and laid with many mighty ones, and exposed our shame and exposed our nakedness. Thus, because we committed adultery against him, we deserve death. We deserve to be stoned. We can't come back to him. We can't come back to our husband, because that would bring abomination and uncleanness upon the land. We couldn't come back. We couldn't come back to him. And so our husband then, he came down and assumed flesh, and he suffered and he died, and he was buried, and then he resurrected as a renewed man. And thus now both Yahudah and Ephraim may be rejoined to a renewed husband, to a new husband. And now we too, both Ephraim and Yahudah, may have our nakedness covered again. Not only Yahudah and Ephraim, but also the stranger who would come in and engraft through the Hamashiach and be married to him, whereby having their nakedness and their crime and their crookedness carried as well and covered as well. Whereby he begins to bear our crime, whereby he covers us with his righteousness, whereby our nakedness is covered. Whereby our nakedness is covered. So reading on here, therefore, I am hedging up your way with thorns, and I shall wall her in, so that she does not find her paths. And she shall pursue her lovers, but not overtake them, and shall seek them, but not find them. Then she shall say, let me go and return to my first husband, for then it was better for me than now. And she did not acknowledge that I gave her grain, and new wine, and oil, and increased her silver, and gold which they prepared for Baal. Therefore I shall turn back, and shall take my grain in its time, and my new wine in its appointed time. And I shall take away my wool and my linen, covering her nakedness. And now I shall uncover her shame before the eyes of her lovers, and no one shall deliver her from my hand. And I shall cause all her celebrating, her festivals, her new months, and her Shabbat, even all her appointed times, to cease, and lay waste her vines and her fig trees, of which she has said, these are my harlot feasts, that my lovers have given me. And I shall make them a forest, and the beasts of the field shall eat them. And I shall punish her for the days of the Baalim, to which she burned incense and abandoned herself with her rings and jewelry, and went after her lovers and forgot me, declares Yahuwah. So again, when we continue standing on the rock, our husband, he covers our nakedness. He covers our crime. He covers our crookedness. He covers it. As an example of Yahusha in the 3rd chapter of Zechariah. He covers our shame. He covers our shame. Indeed, again, this is the job of a husband. Indeed, this is the job of a husband, to cover the shame of his Aisha. Indeed, the shame, we in the physical, we cover the shame of our Aishas, and in covering her shame, meaning that we cover the shame of Kua, of their mother Kua, of what she did. We cover their shame. In like manner, he covers our shame. As man is the head of woman, and Hamashiach is the head of man. Hamashiach covers man. He covers our shame. And man covers the shame of woman, covers our nakedness, covers our crime. Indeed, because love covers a multitude of crime. Love covers a multitude of crime. As Hamashiach loves us, As Hamashiach loves his assembly, loves his tabernacle, loves his dwelling place, man, Aish, is to love his Aisha in the same way and cover her shame and cover her nakedness Indeed, as it is written in Kapha, 1 Peter, the 4th chapter, verse 7 and 8, but the end of all has drawn near. Therefore be sober-minded and be attentive in prayers. And above all, have fervent love for one another, because love covers a great number of crimes. Love covers a great number of crime. And this is what he has done. Love has manifested to us. Love has been manifested. Righteousness has been manifested. Our husband took on flesh and came and rescued his naked wife. So that he could cover her shame. As a renewed husband. She could never return to the old husband because he divorced her. He divorced Ephraim, and Yehudah could never return to the first husband because Yehudah too committed adultery against and whoredom against the first husband. Yehudah was not divorced, but Yehudah was put away, and there was no way for Yehudah to return. Yehudah was permanently put away because of the whoredoms that Yehudah had committed while being in a put away status. And so our husband then came and died, put on flesh, came and died, and was buried and was resurrected as a renewed husband. A renewed husband, thus preparing the way for both Yehudah and Ephraim and the stranger to be joined to a renewed husband. And indeed, as a husband, it is declared in Torah that a husband is to provide food, clothing, and conjugal rights to his wife. And so now, as our husband, he covers our crime. He covers our crookedness. He covers our nakedness. Barak Yahuwah. Indeed, in Proverbs 10:12, it reads again, hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all transgressions. Love covers all transgressions. This is what our husband did for us. But if you're not his wife, if you're not laid upon that foundation, if this tabernacle in which he dwells, in which he enters us, we and him and us, him and us and him, this is what a husband does. This is how the marriage is made a marriage, when the husband enters the wife. If he ain't entered you, you're not his wife. You're not his wife, and he does not have to cover your crime. He does not have to cover your crookedness. He does not have to bear your crimes. He does not have to bear them, which means that you're still naked. You're still unclean. You're still crooked because you're not founded upon the foundation of righteousness, which has been manifested in Yahushua HaMashiach. Nevertheless, therefore, see, I am alluring her and shall lead her back into the wilderness and shall speak to her heart and give to her vineyards from there and the valley of Akur as a door of expectation. And there she shall respond as in the days of her youth, as in the day when she came up from the land of Mashraim. And it shall be in that day, declares Yahuwah, that you shall call me my husband, my husband, my husband. And so he's going to bring us back to the wilderness, and he's going to deal with us there. He's going to deal with us there and bring us into the bond of covenant, into the bond of the covenant, and then he's going to bring us into our land. And when he brings us back into our land, it reads here, and it shall be in that day, declares Yahuwah, that you shall call me my husband. He would truly be our husband then. Indeed, we are betrothed to him now. We are betrothed because he has purchased us. A betrothal has happened. A betrothal price has been paid for us by his very own Dom. And so indeed, we're still married to him, but we are betrothed to him. We haven't entered into the land and entered into the marriage chamber, whereby we have become completely akkad with him, where we have become completely akkad with him. And it shall be in that day, declares Yahuwah, that you shall call me my husband, and no longer call me my Baal. And I shall remove the names of the Baalim from her mouth, and they shall no more be remembered by their name. And in that day I shall make a covenant for them with the beasts of the field, and with the birds of the Shamayim, and with the creeping creatures of the ground, when bow and sword and battle I break from the earth. And I shall make them lie down in safety. And I shall take you as a bride unto me forever, and take you as a bride unto me in righteousness, and in right ruling, and loving commitment, and compassion. Indeed, we have borrowed righteousness now. We have borrowed righteousness right now, provided that you are laid upon the foundation of righteousness in the person of Yahushua HaMashiach, on this truth that he is the Son of the living Elohim, on this righteousness, on this truth, in which the gates of Shaul cannot prevail against. And I shall take you as a bride unto me in trustworthiness, and you shall know Yahuwah. And it shall be in that day that I answer, declares Yahuwah, that I answer the Shamayim, and they answered the earth, and the earth answered the grain, and the new wine, and the oil, and they answer Israel. And I shall sow her for myself in the earth, and I shall have compassion on her who had not obtained compassion. And I shall say to those who were not my people, you are my people, while they say, my Elohim, my Elohim. So again, if he's not your husband, if you're not founded on that foundation, if you're not standing on the rock which is personified in Yahushua HaMashiach, you're not his wife. And you're still shameful, you're still naked, you're still crooked. He does not bear your crookedness. He does not bear your crime, and you're still naked. He has not clothed you in his righteousness, because he don't have to. A man does not have to clothe a woman who is not his Aisha. And so does that mean then, because we are founded now, are reestablished on this foundation of righteousness and being built up as a Kadush dwelling place for Yahuwah, does that then mean that we don't have to obey Torah? Does that mean that we don't have to obey Torah? Indeed, again, it makes no sense for us to having been delivered from crime, by our guilt offering personified in Yahushua HaMashiach, just for us to remain in crime. He did not deliver us from crime just in order for us to remain in crime, Christian. It makes no sense. Understand, gain understanding. He is our crime offering. He is our crime offering. He did away with animal sacrifice. He did not do away with Torah. Torah is going to stand until Shamayim and earth pass away. He did not do away with Torah. Gain some understanding. Come out of her. Come out of her and properly obey him. Properly be laid upon that foundation and become a living tabernacle of Yahuwah Oyum. Gain some understanding. Listen to the words of the one that you profess. You call him Paul, but his name is more properly Paul. Listen to what he says. Listen to what he says in Romans the 6th chapter, verse 1 through 23. What then shall we say? Shall we continue in crime to let favor increase? Listen, let it not be. How shall we who died to crime still live in it? How shall we who died to crime still live in it? That is the question, isn't it? That is the question. Have you died to crime? Have you died to it? Have you been immersed in the name and the righteous name of Yahushua HaMashiach? Whereby when you went underneath the water, you died to crime. Whereby when you went underneath the water, the penalty of crime was paid in you through him, because the wages of crime is death, and so death is required. Both death is required. Death is still required for us. Thus we have to die. We have to die in a death by drowning. When we go underneath the water, we die. This is a representation, a symbolic of us dying to crime. And this is a representation of the penalty of crime being paid in us and through him. And then when we rise from underneath the water, we arise to the newness of life, being reborn, being new creations, being created in the image of the second Adam, whereby now, after receiving his root, we're under no more obligation to what? To commit crime. We're under no more obligation to obey the sinful desires of the flesh, which is the first Adam. Because now he has set us free. Indeed, whom the Son sets free is free indeed. Free from what? Free from crime. Because when his root comes upon us and writes the Torah upon us and gives us and circumcises our heart, whereby giving us a love for Torah and a willingness to obey it, we're now set free from crime. We're under no more obligation to obey the sinful desires of our flesh. So that's the question. Have you died to crime? If you're still committing crime, you have not died to crime, Christian. You have not died to it. You're still living in it, and you're still naked, because he ain't your husband. If he's your husband, you'll obey him. You'll obey his Torah. If he indeed is your husband, you show that he's not. You show that he's not your husband, because you don't obey him. You don't obey Torah, and you're naked, and you're unclean, and you're still crooked. You are trampling on the offering of the body of the Hamashiach, which was given for your crime, which was given for your crimes. Let it not be. How shall we who died to crime still live in it? Do you not know that as many of us as were immersed in the Makuah, Tabbalah, the immersion, into Mashiach, Yahusha, were immersed into his death? We were therefore buried with him through immersion into death, that as Mashiach was raised from the dead by the esteem of the Father, so also we should walk in the newness of life. You should walk in Torah. You should walk in Torah. Abba is light, and in him is no darkness at all. If we say that we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness or Torahlessness, we lie and do not live by the truth. But if we walk in the light in Torah, as he is in the light, then we have fellowship with him, and the Dam of Yahusha then cleanses us from all crime, because we're walking in Torah. We're walking in Torah. Crime is disobedience to Torah. This is what crime is. For if we have come to be grown together in the likeness of his death, we shall be also in the resurrection, knowing this, that our old man was impaled with him. The first Adam, that crime-ridden body, was impaled with him, so that the body of crime, transgression of Torah, might be rendered powerless to serve crime no longer, transgression of Torah. For he who has died has been made right from crime. Made right how? The wages of crime is death. The only way to be made right from crime is to die, because that's the penalty prescribed in the very beginning. On the day that you partake of this fruit is the day that you will die. So in order to be made right from crime, we must die to crime and no longer walk in crime. No longer willfully walk in crime, transgression of Torah. No longer walk in the filthiness of our flesh. We walk in the newness of life, obeying Torah in ruth and in truth. And if we died with Mashiach, we believe that we shall also live with him, knowing that Mashiach, having been raised from the dead, dies no more. Death no longer rules over him. For in that he died to crime once and for all. But in that he lives to Elohim. So you also reckon yourselves to be dead indeed to crime, transgression of Torah, but alive to Elohim and Mashiach Yahusha our Master. Therefore, do not let crime reign in your mortal body, to obey it in its desires, transgression of Torah. Neither present your members as instruments of unrighteousness to crime, but present yourselves to Elohim as being alive from the dead, and your members as instruments of righteousness to Elohim. For crime shall not rule over you, for you are not under the law, but under favor. Now, under the law here talks about the penalty prescribed by the law, which is death. If you have died to the penalties, which is prescribed under Torah, then you are no longer under the penalty, because you have died, provided that you've died to crime, provided that you have died. And so the not under the law of Torah here, but under favor, speaks to we're no longer under the penalty prescribed by the law, which is death, because of the favor which is manifested in the body of Yahushua HaMashiach, provided that you no longer walk in crime, and provided that you have died to crime. What then? Shall we commit crime because we are not under Torah, but under favor? Let it not be. Listen, what then? Shall we commit crime, transgression of Torah, because we are not under Torah, but under favor? Let it not be. Now, under here means subjected, again, to the penalties or accountable to its punishment. The crimes we committed are erased by the Dam, the blood of Yahusha, who paid for us and purchased us. Do you not know to whom you present yourselves servants for obedience? You are servants of the one whom you obey, whether of crime, transgression of Torah, to death, or of obedience to righteousness, obedience to Torah, which is righteousness, the living Torah, which is righteousness. But thanks to Elohim that you were servants of crime, transgressions of Torah. Yet you obeyed from the heart that form of teaching to which you were entrusted. And having been set free from crime, transgression of Torah, you become servants of righteousness, obedience to Torah. I speak as a man because of the weakness of your flesh. For even as you did present your members as servants of uncleanness, and of, listen, and of lawlessness, Torahlessness, resulting in lawlessness or Torahlessness, so now present your members as servants of righteousness, of obedience to Torah. Torah is righteousness for us. Torah is Yahuwah. Torah is Yahusha, the living Torah. But you must obey it from the correct foundation. You must obey it having our crimes paid for, having died to crime. If you have not died to crime, the penalty is still in force. It's still in place, and you're still naked. And so you must die first to the old crimes, whereby satisfying the penalty, the judgment which was prescribed in the very beginning, when again, the day you partake of the fruit is the day that you will die. And so we must die. We must die, whereby having the penalty of crime paid in us through him, and then being resurrected to the newness of life through the immersion, and whereby now being reestablished in righteousness, the righteousness of Torah, the righteousness of the living Torah, being reestablished and relaid on that foundation, the foundation of that truth that he is Yahusha, the Son of the living Elohim, being reestablished in righteousness, on that rock, and from that place and from that foundation being built up as a Kodesh dwelling place for YAHUAH'S, and from that place obeying Torah the best that we can, to the best of our ability, obeying Torah. Does that mean that we are perfect at that point? No. Because if we were perfect, then we would not need a mediator for us. We would not need a mediator, as in the words of Yahuchanan, the ambassador Yahuchanan. Little ones, I speak to you so that you do not commit crime. But if you do commit crime, we have a mediator, Yahusha HaMashiach, who intercedes for us. And so that does not mean that we're perfect. Again, we're not. We have no righteousness. Listen. We have no righteousness. We are clothed in his righteousness, provided that he is our husband, and provided that we are laid on that foundation, because this is just a borrowed righteousness. We're not going to be truly righteous until he gathers us and brings us into our land and sprinkles clean water on us and removes our heart of stone and replaces it with a heart of flesh, and puts his ruach in us and his full ruach in us, and puts his and gives us and writes his Torah in us. All of his Torah. We don't know all of his Torah. We know it in part. Indeed, all of it we can't keep because we're in the land of our captivity. But we obey in ruach and in truth, as the ruach gives us the ability to do so. As he gives us the ability to do so. As he gives us the ability to do so. I speak as a man because of the weakness of your flesh. For even as you did present your members as servants of uncleanness, and of lawlessness or Torahlessness, resulting in lawlessness or Torahlessness, so now present your members as servants of righteousness, or obedience to Torah, resulting in separateness, resulting in being kadosh, which is falsely called holy, For when you were servants of crime, you were free from righteousness. Again, crime is transgression of Torah. Torah is righteousness in accordance with Tabernacles 6:25. And we understand in accordance with John, the 1st chapter, that he is righteousness. He is the living word. We understand in the text in scripture by the mouth of the Nabi Yahu, commonly called Jeremiah, that Yahuwah's Adakanu. Yahuwah is righteousness. He is our righteousness. He is the living Torah. And so his righteousness must cover us. And his righteousness does not cover us unless indeed we have died to crime. One, we have died to crime, whereby having the penalty paid. whereby having the penalty paid, whereby being restored to covenant with him, whereby being reestablished on that rock, the foundation of righteousness, whereby he becoming our husband, whereby he then providing clothing for us, providing the clothing of righteousness for us, and whereby from that place then we proceed to obey his righteous Torah and root and in truth the best of our abilities with all of our heart, mind, and strength. What fruit, therefore, were you having then, over which you are now alarmed? For the end thereof is death. But now, having been set free from crime, and having become servants of Elohim, you have your fruit resulting in separateness, or being kadush, which is falsely called holy, or holiness. And the end, everlasting life. And the end, everlasting life. You don't get to inherit. Only sons inherit. Only firstborn sons inherit the possessions of the Father. And unless you're born of the Father, you're not his son. He is not flesh and blood. He is Ruch. And so unless you are born of Ruch, you're not his son. And unless you're born of Ruch, you're not his wife. And unless you're born of Ruch, you're not reestablished on that stone, on the rock of our Yeshua, the rock of our deliverance, our righteousness. We must be reestablished on this rock, on the rock in which the gates of Shaul cannot prevail against. For the wages of sin, crime, is death. For the wages of crime is death. If you don't obey his Torah, you're gonna die. You're gonna die if you have not accepted the crime offering, whereby dying to crime and having the penalty paid in us through him. And if you're not, and from that point you have not repented, tashubah, and turned from crime into his marvelous light, which is obedience to Torah, then the wages of crime is still death. What is crime? Transgression of Torah, in accordance with 1 John, the 3rd chapter, and the 4th verse. For the wages of crime is death, but the favorable gift of Elohim is everlasting life in Mashiach Yahusha, our master. And so we recognize that we have no righteousness. We recognize that. But we must remain on the rock. We must remain on the rock because we have no righteousness. And yet, if we continue in unrighteousness, after having been made righteous by the shed dam of Yahusha, listen, we have insulted the rock in which we stand. We have insulted the rock in which we stand, as it is written. For if we commit crime purposely, transgression of Torah, after we have received the knowledge of the truth, what truth? That he is Yahusha, that he is the Mashiach, the Son of the living Elohim. Upon this truth I shall build my assembly, my tabernacle. And that he came to shed his blood to deliver us from crime, to deliver us from death, to deliver us from the curses of crime, and to transition us from the reign of darkness into his marvelous light. He shed his blood. His body was completely drained of blood because, as it is written in the Torah, before we could partake of a slaughtering, all the blood had to be drained out of the body and poured down as water and then covered up with dirt. Him being our crime offering, he was completely drained of blood. And so understanding this truth, that through his shed dam, that we have been reestablished in righteousness, reestablished on the stone that has been laid in Zion, upon this foundation in which he will build his Kadush assembly. If after receiving this knowledge of the truth, if we continue purposely in crime, there no longer remains a slaughter offering for crime. There no longer remains a slaughter offering for crime. If you continue in crime after having been delivered from crime, after the crime offering, there remains no slaughter offering for crime, or for crime, and crime again being transgression of Torah, but some fierce anticipation of judgment and a fierce fire which is about to consume the opponents. Therefore, having left the word of the beginning of the Mashiach, let us go on to perfection, not laying again the foundation of repentance from dead works, Not laying, again, the foundation of repentance. Repentance from what? From crime, from dead works, from touching dead things, from crime. Dead things, crime is dead things because crime brings about death. And of belief toward Elohim, of the teaching of immersion, and of laying on of hands, and of the resurrection of the dead, and of everlasting judgment. And this we shall do, if Elohim indeed permits. For it is impossible for those who were once enlightened, and have tasted the gift of the Shamayim, have become partakers of the Kadush Ruk, and have tasted the good word of Elohim, and the powers of the age to come, and fall away, to renew them again to repentance, having impaled for themselves the Son of Elohim again, and put him to open shame. And put him to open shame. We don't continue in crime. He's our crime offering. We don't continue in crime. We don't put him to an open shame. He died to bring us back to covenant. Where is covenant? Covenant is Torah. Covenant is Torah. Covenant is obedience to his commands, as it is written in Shemot, the 20th chapter, that he shows loving commitment to thousands who love him and obey his commands. Loving commitment to thousands who love him and obey his commands. Indeed, it is written, if we love him, we will obey his commands. Indeed, it is written that, and this is the love of Elohim, that we what? That we obey his commands. And so we don't put him to an open shame. He died to restore us to covenant so that we could be reestablished in righteousness, and so that we could now obey him, obey his righteous Torah and Ruch and in truth. His righteous Torah, which defines what crime is. His righteous Torah, which makes a distinction between, teaches us to make a distinction between the clean and the unclean, which teaches us what displeases him. And through our obedience to it, we then assume the very character and nature of YAHUAH'S, because he clothes us in his righteousness, because Torah teaches us his very character and his very nature. And when we obey it, we assume his very nature and his very character. Indeed, he clothes us in his righteousness. Hebrews, Abarim, the 10th chapter, verse 28 through 31. Anyone who has disregarded the Torah of Moshe dies without compassion on the witness of 2 or 3 witnesses. How much worse punishment do you think shall he deserve who has trampled the Son of Elohim underfoot, counted the blood of the covenant by which he was Kadush as common, and insulted the Ruch of favor? For we know him who has said, vengeance is mine, I shall repay, says Yahuwah. And again, Yahuwah shall judge his people. It is fearsome to fall into the hands of the living Elohim. And so therefore, Mashpaka, let us celebrate, let us seek shalom with all men, and separateness, and separateness, for without which no man shall see Yah. And let us stand on the rock of our foundation, and our Yeshua, being living tabernacles, shining the light of Yahuwah among the nations. Among the nations. But we must be, these tabernacles must be laid upon the correct foundation. There is only one foundation that is strong enough to support the weight of the burdens that our father Adam passed to his children. And that is the foundation of righteousness. That is the foundation personified in Yahushua HaMashiach. Unless we are founded on this foundation, he is not our husband. We're still naked, and we're still crooked, because he does not have to clothe us, because we're not his Aisha. If we're not founded on that foundation, and if we're not his Aisha, he does not bear our crimes. He does not bear our crimes. And so now Abba has revealed to us how this tabernacle, this living tabernacle, the foundation in which it has to be founded, he has revealed to us that it must be founded on the truth of Yahushua HaMashiach, the Mashiach, the Son of the living Elohim. And from that place, we are to obey his righteous Torah. So now the foundation has been laid. The tabernacle, the living tabernacle, has been laid on this foundation. The tabernacle has been laid on this foundation of righteousness. It is firm. It is fixed We can stand here. We can trust this foundation. We can trust this foundation to support the weight of our burdens because he bears our crimes. And because we're standing on this rock, because we're standing on this foundation, he now clothes us with his righteousness and he covers our nakedness. And we just need to stand here and push and fight and not be moved and stand in this place until he comes to gather us. Until he comes to gather us and sprinkle clean water on us and remove our hearts of stone and replace it with a heart of flesh and put his Ruach in us and put his Torah in us. We just need to stand here. Everything has been done for us. We do not have to carry our own righteousness. Indeed, we have no righteousness. We must just stand on this rock from which we gain our power, from which we gain our strength, from which we gain our righteousness. From which we gain our righteousness. We must stand on this rock. Standing in any other place, the reign of darkness does not respect. It does not respect. It only respects those who are reborn from above and who are standing firm on this fixed, firm foundation of righteousness. And so now the tabernacle has been built, but the title of this teaching is that we are living tabernacles, in which it has been commanded that the light is to continually burn. That the light is to continually burn. But as mentioned at the beginning of this teaching, if the tabernacle, if the building is not laid on the correct foundation, then the tabernacle is going to fall. It's not going to last, which makes the putting the light in there a moot point. Which makes putting the light in the tabernacle a moot point. So now the tabernacle is built the correct way. So now let's talk about the light in the tabernacle that is to burn continually. That is to burn continually. So let's look at Leviticus 24, verse 1 through 4. Indeed, again, we are living tabernacles. It was never Abba Yahuwah's desire to dwell in buildings made with hands. Those were mere foreshadowings of the living tabernacles that he is calling, and which he wants to dwell in the tabernacle of the human heart. In the tabernacle of the human heart, he wants to dwell in us. He wants to dwell in us, and he still indeed dwells in the midst of his people. He has always dwelt in the midst of his people. In the wilderness, he dwelled in the tent of appointment. This was the proof that they were his people. My ancestors were his people because he dwells in the midst of his people. In the first and second Hayiko, which is to say temple, he dwelled in the midst of his people. This is how the nations know that we are his people, because he dwells in the midst of his people. Indeed, if you are not a living tabernacle and he is not in you, then you are not his people. You are not his people because he still dwells in the midst of his people. And so it was never his intent to dwell in houses made with hands. Those were foreshadowings. Those were mere foreshadowings of his desire to dwell in us, of his desire to dwell in us. And so as the commandment is given here in YAHUAH'S, Leviticus the 24th chapter, verse 1 through 4, listen. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, command the children of Yashar'al that they bring to you clear. Clear. Now the Abraite word here for clear is zak. Zak, Z-A-K, oil of pressed olives for the light, to make the lamps burn continually. To make the lamps burn continually. Outside, and we're going to talk more about Zak here down below. Outside the veil of witness in the tent of appointment, Aharon is to arrange it from evening unto morning before Yahuwah continually. Listen, a law forever. A law forever throughout your generations. A law forever throughout your generation. It says here forever. Aulam. Aulam. And we understand that forever means forever. But we also understand that there is no longer a standing tabernacle. Either a first or second Hayiko or the tent of appointment. They no longer stand. Again, this says forever because it was always his desire to dwell in us. To dwell in us. And so forever means forever, which means that this light is to still continually burn in these living tabernacles. This light is still to continually burn in these living tabernacles. Listen, a law forever throughout your generations. He is to arrange the lamps on the clean gold lampstand before Yahuwah continually. Continually. Now let's take a look at the Abarit word Zak. Zak, Z-A-K. Z-A-K. It is Zion and Kaf. Zion, Kaf. Zion, Kaf. Zak. Zak. And it is strong. Reading here in Strong's Hebrew, 2134, it reads here, clear, clean, pure. Clean, pure, 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 clean. Listen, righteous. Righteous. The pure one. The pure one. And so now looking at Zak and breaking down the individual Abraite letters, again, it is comprised of the Abraite letters Zion and Kaf. Zion and Kaf. Zion is what represents Zion. The Abraite letter Zion is represented by a sword, weapon, cut, pierce, nourish. And Kaf is represented by a palm, open, allow, tame. Palm, open, allow, tame. Indeed, it is written, for the word of Elohim is living and working, and sharper than any two-edged sword, cutting through even to the dividing of being and root, and of joints and marrow, and able to judge the thoughts and intentions of the heart. Abarim 4:12. And so we understand that Zion, Zak, being represented by a sword, a weapon, a cut, pierce, nourish, that we're talking about the word. We're talking about the word. We're talking about the word of Yahuwah. We also understand that only Yahuwah is pure. Only Yahuwah is pure, clean, and righteous. Only Yahuwah is pure, clean, and righteous. And so the Zak, or oil, is the word. It is Torah. It is Torah. The oil, or Zak, is the word. It is Torah. The word Torah is Ruk. It is Ruk. And so Yahuwah, Yahusha, is the living Torah. Thus it is alive, as recanted in Abarim, Hebrews 4:12. Thus it is alive. It is a sword and a weapon that cuts, pierces, and tames. Indeed, he is Yahuwah Shabaut. He is Yahuwah Shabaut, which is to say, master of armies of Shamayim. The oil and the word Torah are synonymous. The oil and the word, or Torah, are synonymous. They are interchangeable. They are interchangeable. Without the word Torah, there is no oil. Indeed, the Torah indeed is Ruk. It is Ruk. The Ruk is the anointing. The Ruk is the oil. But without the word Torah, there is no oil. Without oil, listen, there is no light. Without oil, there is no light. We must remain in the word Torah, Mashpaka. We must remain in the word, which is Torah, continually. Continually. We must not ever leave Torah. We must not ever leave Torah, because Torah, again, teaches us the very nature and character of Yahuwah. It teaches us what pleases him and what displeases him. It teaches us the difference between the clean and the unclean. Staying in Torah enables the light. The Torah, his Torah is light in accordance with Proverbs 6:23, and we're going to read that down below. But his Torah is light, and so in order for that light to burn continually, we must remain continually in Torah, and we must remain continually rooted and grounded upon the foundation of the living Torah. We must remain in Torah continually in order for the light to burn continually. Us in him, Torah, word, him in us. Without word, Torah, we have no light. Without the word, without Torah, we have no light. Thus, the light that is commanded to burn continually in us will not burn if we're not continually in the light, if we're not continually in Torah, obeying it from the foundation of righteousness personified in Yahushua HaMashiach. And so we must remain continually in Torah. Yahuchanan in John 8:12. Therefore, Yahushua spoke to them again, saying, I am the light of the world. I am the light of the world. He is the light. He is the living Torah. He who follows me shall by no means walk in darkness, but possess the light of life. Now here he says, I am the light of the world. I am the light of the world. Now, reading here in Matat Yahu, or Matthew, the 5th chapter, reading verse 14 through 16, it reads here, you are the light of the world. You are the light of the world. Above it says, he is the light of the world. Here it says, you are the light of the world. Indeed, we are living tabernacles. We're living tabernacles. Indeed, where our foundation, we must be laid upon the correct foundation, founded in righteousness, and we must continually remain in Torah. Continually remain in Torah, in the light, being built upon the foundation of righteousness, the living Torah, so that we become the light of the world. So that we become the light of the world. It is impossible for a city to be hidden on a mountain, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it shines to all those in the house. Let your light so shine before men, so that they see your good works and praise your Father who is in the Shamayim. Indeed, we are living tabernacles in which the light of Torah is to continually shine within us, so that our works are clearly seen before men, so that they praise Yahuwah who is in the Shamayim. Indeed, we have now been scattered amongst the nations. We have now been scattered amongst the nations to be a nation of Kahanim, to be living tabernacles, in which the light of Torah, is to continually burn. And that light is what? It's manifested in our works. It is manifested in our works. It is manifested in good works. That light must manifest in the works of Torah. We must be living Torahs, active Torahs. That light must manifest in action, so that light then does what? It draws the nations to Yahuwah as moths are drawn to candles. It draws them to the living tabernacles. It draws them to the Yahuwah who dwells within the living tabernacle. It draws them to Yahuwah who dwells within the living tabernacle. You see, the tabernacle, the earthly tabernacle, was set up this way. Outside of the veil was the menorah. Was the light, which is to burn continually. Outside the veil was the menorah and the table and the lampstand and the bread and the showbread and the slaughter place. And so our works must manifest outside the veil. Our works must manifest outside the veil in order to draw the nations to the Yahuwah who resides beyond the veil, in the human heart. This is where he dwells. We are living tabernacles. And the menorah, the light which is to continually burn, is to manifest in good works, so that the nations will see these living tabernacles who have been strategically placed among the nations, so that the nations through these living tabernacles will be reconciled back to covenant with Yahuwah, and so that they will be drawn to the living Elohim who dwells beyond the veil in the living heart, in the human heart. This is how this works. And so in order for them to be drawn, that light, the light of Torah, must continually shine. But it cannot continually shine unless light is in you. And light cannot be in you unless Yahusha HaMashiach, who is the living light, is in you. And unless we remain not only continually in him, but physically reading the Torah. But physically staying in the Torah and never leaving the Torah. Indeed, in Ishayahu, or Isaiah, the 8th chapter, 20th verse, it reads, to the Torah and the witness, if they do not speak according to this word, it is because they have no light in them. If you are not in the Torah, you have no light in you, and the light which has been commanded to continually burn is not burning. And we are in transgression because we are living tabernacles. Indeed, that tabernacle pointed towards us. And that menorah, which is a representation of the eternal light, which is Yahuwah, is a representation of him dwelling in us. And that light, which is beyond the veil, which shines on the table with the showbread, is to manifest in us with outward works, so that light, so that our works would draw men to the Yahuwah who dwells beyond the veil in within the human heart, within the tabernacle, within the ark of the covenant, which is the human heart, Indeed, in Psalms 119, 105, your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. Indeed, the word is Torah. The word is Torah. So if we're not continually in Torah, continually in the word, continually immersing ourselves in the word and being founded on the foundation of righteousness, then we have no light in us. And if we have no light in us, we can't let our light shine before men. There is no light in you. There is no light in us. Indeed, in Proverbs 6:23, it reads, for the command is a lamp and the Torah a light, and reproofs of discipline a way of life. Indeed, Yahuwah is Torah. Yahuwah is light. If we do not remain in him through his Torah, we have no light in us. We have become tasteless, void of light. Tasteless, void of light. As it reads here in 1 John, the 1st chapter, verse 5 through 7. And this is the message which we have heard from him and announced to you, that Elohim is light, and in him is no darkness at all. If we say that we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie and are not doing the truth. But if we walk in the light, in the Torah, as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Yahushua Mashiach, his son, cleanses us from all crime. From all crime. Indeed, in Yahuwah, Matthew, the 5th chapter, the 13th verse, it reads here, you are the malak, which is to falsely say salt. You are the malak of the earth. But if the malak becomes tasteless, how shall it be seasoned? For it is no longer of any use, but to be thrown out and to be trodden down by men. This is the malak of the covenant. This is the malak of the covenant that is being spoken about here. This is the malak, commonly called salt of the covenant. Malak is also synonymous with Torah. Malak is also synonymous with Torah because the covenant is contained within the Torah. Malak cleanses, Malak preserves, Malak seasons. Malak cleanses, Malak preserves, and Malak seasons. We are living Torahs. We have been sent as vessels to cleanse, preserve, and season. But without no Torah, there is no light. Without no light, there is no Malak. In other words, without Torah, there is no covenant. Without covenant, we will not be preserved. We will only be preserved on board the ark of the covenant. On board the ark of the covenant. As it reads here in Yeshayahu, the 58th chapter, verse 1 through 14, beginning at verse 1. Cry aloud and do not spare. Lift up your voice like the shofar. Declare to my people their transgression, and to the house of Jacob their crimes. Yet they seek me day by day, and delight to know my ways, as a nation that did righteousness and did not forsake the right ruling of their Elohim. They ask of me rulings of righteousness, they delight in drawing near to Elohim. They say, why have we fasted and you have not seen? Why have we afflicted our beings and you took no note? Look, in the day of your fasting you find pleasure, and drive on all your labors. Look, you fast for strife and contention, and to strike with the fist of wrongness. You do not fast as you do to this day, to make your voice heard on high. Is it a fast that I have chosen, a day for a man to afflict his being? Is it to bow down his head like a bulrush, and to spread out sackcloth and ashes? Do you call this a fast and an acceptable day to Yahuwah? Is this not the fast that I have chosen, to loosen the tight cords of wrongness, to undo the bands of the yoke, to exempt to oppress, and to break every yoke? All of this is Torah. All of this is Torah. All of this is light. All of this is being Torah amongst the nations, being lights, being living menorahs amongst the nations, so that light, so that our works being manifested as light, would draw the nations to the Elohim, to the Yahuwah, who dwells beyond the veil in the human heart, thus using us to reconcile the remnant of mankind back to covenant with him. Is it not to share your bread with the hungry, Torah, and that you bring to your house the poor who are cast out? This is Torah. When you see the naked and cover him, this is Torah. And not hide yourself from your own flesh, this is Torah. Then, listen, if you do this, then your light would break forth. Then that living light, that light would burn continually. Then your light would break forth like the morning, your healing spring forth speedily, and your righteousness shall be before you. The esteem of Yahuwah would be your rear guard. Then when you call, Yahuwah would answer. When you cry, he would say, here I am. If you take away the yoke from your midst, the pointing of the finger and the speaking of unrighteousness, if you extend your being to the hungry, this is Torah, and satisfy the afflicted being, this is Torah, then your light shall dawn in the darkness, and your darkness be as noon. Indeed, we cannot properly obey Torah in root and in truth without being laid upon the foundation of righteousness, personified in Yahushua HaMashiach, whereby having the root of the Mashiach dwelling in us, whereby he becoming our husband, whereby he becoming our righteousness. Then Yahuwah would guide you continually. Then Yahuwah would guide you continually. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path, and satisfy your being in drought and strengthen your bones. And you shall be like a watered garden and like a spring of water, whose waters do not fail. And those from among you shall build the old waste places. You shall raise up the foundation of many generations, and you would be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of the streets to dwell in. If you do turn back your foot from the Shabbat, this is Torah, from doing your own pleasure on my Kadush day, this is Torah. And you shall call the Shabbat a delight, the Kadush day of Yahuwah esteem, this is Torah. And shall esteem it, this is Torah. Not doing your own ways, this is Torah. Nor finding your own pleasure, nor speaking your own words. Then you shall delight yourself in Yahuwah, and I shall cause you to ride on the heights of the earth, and feed you with the inheritance of Yaakov, your father, for the mouth of Yahuwah has spoken. For the mouth of Yahuwah has spoken. Indeed, in YAHUAH'S, the 18th chapter, the 5th verse, it reads here, so you shall guard my statutes and my judgments, by which a man may live if he does them. I am Yahuwah. I am Yahuwah. So life is found in the Torah. Life is found in the Torah. Death is found outside of obedience to Torah. Life is found in the Torah and being living tabernacles and being living lights, having that menorah shining brightly, manifesting in outward works, so that that light draws the nations to Yahuwah as moths drawn to candles, so that that light draws the nations outside of the veil to the Yahuwah who dwells beyond the veil in the human heart. Dabarim, Deuteronomy 15 through 20. Deuteronomy 30, 15 through 20. See, I have placed before you today life and good, and death and evil, and that I am commanding you today to love Yahuwah your Elohim, to walk in his ways, and to guard his commands, and his laws, and his right rulings. And you shall live and increase, and Yahuwah your Elohim shall barak you in the land which you go to possess. But if your heart turns away, and you do not obey, and shall be drawn away, and shall bow down to other mighty ones and serve them, I have declared to you today that you shall certainly perish, and you shall not prolong your days in the land which you are passing over the Jordan to enter and possess. And so we contain life in us, Mashpaka. Provided that the Torah is in us, we contain life in us. That light, we contain light, the light that shines in darkness, the light that is to illuminate the path of the nations, to draw them out of darkness into its marvelous light. Provided that the light is in us, there is life in obedience to Torah. There is life in this. Reading on, I have called the Shamayim and the earth as witnesses today against you. I have placed before you life and death, a barakah and a curse. Therefore you shall choose life, so that you live, both you and your seed, to love Yahuwah your Elohim, to obey his word, and to cling to him, for he is your life and the length of your days, to dwell in the land which Yahuwah swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Ishak, and to Jacob, to give them. And so now let's take a look, and we're going to shut this video down here shortly. Let's take a look at what it means to be a living Torah. Let's look at the ancient past. Let's look at what it means to be a living tabernacle, founded on the foundation of righteousness. Indeed, our ancient fathers, they saw Yahuwah. They saw Yahuwah. They saw Yahuwah manifested in different forms. Abraham, whom we're getting ready to read about, he saw Yahuwah manifested in the person of Yahushua HaMashiach, and he was built on that foundation. He was built upon that foundation of righteousness. He was built upon that foundation. And so we're going to look at the ancient past, and we're going to look at and see what it means to be a living tabernacle. To be a living tabernacle in which the light of Yahuwah burns continually. Burns continually. Let's take a look now at Jasher, the 22nd chapter. We're going to read verse 11 through 13, beginning at verse 11. And Abraham planted a large grove in Baal Shabbat, and he made to it 4 gates facing the 4 sides of the earth. And he planted a vineyard in it, so that if a traveler came to Abraham, he entered any gate which was in his road, and remained there, and ate and drank and satisfied himself, and then departed. For the house of Abraham was always open, listen, to the sons of men that passed and repassed, who came daily to eat and drink in the house of Abraham, irrespective of who they were. There's 70 nations of mankind, and his vineyard was open to all of them. To all of them. We have been established in the Iraq, strategically placed in the Iraq as being living tabernacles, in which that light is to draw men. That light is to draw men as moths are drawn to candles. It is to draw men to the Yahuwah who dwells beyond the veil, in the tabernacle or in the ark of the covenant, that is the human heart. It is to draw them, whereby using us to reconcile mankind back to covenant with Yahuwah. And any man who had hunger, listen, this is how you be a living tabernacle. This is how we are to be living tabernacles, living Torahs, living life. And any man who had hunger and came to Abraham's house, Abraham would give him bread that he might eat and drink and be satisfied. This is Torah. And anyone that came naked to his house, he would clothe with garments as he might choose. This is Torah. And give him silver and gold, and listen, and make known to him Yahuwah, who had created him in the earth. This did Abraham all his life. This is what our ancient fathers did, and this is what we are called to. We're called to be living tabernacles in which the light is to burn continually. Abraham did this. Jacob did, Ishak did this. Jacob did this. Yahusuf did this. Let's go back. Aber did this. Aber did this, commonly called Eber. Shem or Sham did this same thing. Nuach did this same thing. Methuselah did this same thing. Indeed, Nuach and Methuselah preached and proclaimed the message of repentance for 120 years during the time before the flood. They did the same thing. They were living tabernacles to the remnant of mankind. Kanuk did the same thing. Kanuk did the same thing, and all our ancient fathers did this. You see, this is the ancient path. Yahushua indeed did the same thing. Yahushua did the same thing. He showed us how to be living tabernacles. He showed us how to be living tabernacles and to let our light shine before men, because hence he, in the text, it says that he is the light of the world. And then it turns around and says that you are the light of the world. You are the light of the world, because he represented us. And we are to emulate or imitate the example in which he set for us. So reading here again, Abraham would give him bread that he might eat and drink and be satisfied. And anyone that came naked to his house, he would clothe with garments as he might choose, and give him silver and gold, and make known to him Yahuwah, who had created him in the earth. This did Abraham all his life. all his life. This is the ancient path. Jasher 26, verse 29 through 38. Jasher 26, verse 29 through 38, beginning at verse 29. And it was at that time that Abraham died, in the 15th year of the life of Jacob and Esau, the sons of Ishkak. And all the days of Abraham were 175 years. And he died and was gathered to his people in good old age, old and satisfied with days. And Ishkak and Ishmael, his sons, buried him. And when the inhabitants of Canaan heard that Abraham was dead, they all came with their sovereigns and princes and all their men to bury Abraham. And all the inhabitants of the land of Charan, and all the families of the house of Abraham, and all the princes and grandees and the sons of Abraham by the concubines, all came when they heard of Abraham's death. And they requited Abraham's kindness. And they requited Abraham's kindness, and comforted Ishkak his son. And they buried Abraham in the cave which he bought from Ephron the Kittite and his children for the possession of a burial place. And all the inhabitants of Canaan and all those who had known Abraham wept for Abraham a whole year. Wept for Abraham a whole year. And men and women mourned over him. And all the little children and all the inhabitants of the land wept on account of Abraham. Listen, for Abraham had been good to them all. For Abraham had been good to them all. This is what it means to be a living tabernacle, where that light continually burns in order to draw men to the Yahuwah who lives beyond the veil, in dwelling between the cherubim above the compassion seat of the Ark of the Covenant, and that is the human heart. And that is the dwelling place, the Ark of the human heart. Listen, for Abraham had been good to them all, and because he had been upright with Elohim and men. And there arose not a man who feared Elohim like unto Abraham, who revered Elohim like unto Abraham. For he had revered his Elohim from his youth, and had served Yahuwah, and had gone in all his ways during his life, from his childhood to the day of his death. And Yahuwah was with him, and delivered him from the counsel of Namrud and his people. And when he made war with the four kings, the four sovereigns of Elam, and he conquered them, and he brought all the children, of the earth to the service of Elohim. This is what it means to be a living tabernacle in which the light continually burns. And he taught them the ways of Yahuwah. How are you going to teach them the ways of Yahuwah if you don't know the ways of Yahuwah yourself, if you're not continually in his Torah? And he taught them the ways of Yahuwah, and caused them to know Yahuwah. And he formed a grove, and he planted a vineyard therein. And he had always prepared in his tent meat and drink to those that passed through the land. This is Torah. This is being a living tabernacle, that they might satisfy themselves in his house. And Yahuwah Elohim, listen, delivered the whole earth on account of Abraham. On account of Abraham. 1 Corinthians 9, verse 19 through 23. For though I am free from all, I made myself a servant to all, in order to win more. And to the Yahudim I became as a Yahudi, that I might win Yahudim, to those who are under Torah, as under Torah, so as to win those who are under Torah. Now, under Torah here is to say animal offerings, under animal offerings, which could only be done at Jerusalem, Offerings could only be done at Jerusalem. Here is a witness to that when he was with the Yahudim, he became as the Yahudim, because again, this is addressing animal offerings, which could only be done at the Ha'ikal, at the door of the Ha'ikal, which is at Jerusalem, which is the place where he had placed his name. And so looking real quickly at Ma'ashah, or Acts, the 21st chapter, I'm going to read verse 17 through 24. And when we had arrived in Jerusalem, the brothers received us gladly. And on the following day, Shaul went in with us to Yaqub, and all the elders came. And having greeted them, he was relating one by one what Elohim had done among the nations through his service. And when they heard it, they praised the master And they said to him, you see, brother, how many thousands of Yahudim there are who have believed, and all who are ardent for the Torah. But they have been informed about you. But they have been informed about you that you teach all the Yahudim who are among the nations to forsake Masha, saying not to circumcise the children, nor to walk according to the practices. What then is it? They shall certainly hear that you have come. So do this. What we say to you, we have 4 men who have taken a vow. Take them and be cleansed. And this is the vow of the Nasaim. This is the vow of the Nazarene, rather. The vow of the Nazarene. And at the end of the vow of a Nazarene, an offering had to be brought. An offering had to be bought. And again, the only place a crime offering had to be brought, and the only place that a crime offering could be slaughtered is at the door of the Ha'ikal, which was located in Jerusalem, where he had placed his name. And so this is what it means to be, when he was with the Yahudim, he was with as one of the Yahudim. So do this, what we say to you. We have 4 men who have taken a vow. Take them and be cleansed with them, and pay their expenses so that they shave their heads. And all shall know that what they have been informed about you is not so, but that you yourself also walk orderly, keeping the Torah. Keeping the Torah. And so even in doing this, he was still keeping the Torah and not transgressing the Torah. Reading on, to those without Torah, and this is to say, without animal offerings, which could only be done at Jerusalem, he did not become criminal by doing this. He did not become criminal by doing this because he was under the offering, under the sacrifice of Yahushua HaMashiach. And so still, which that offering, which is in accordance with Torah. And so whether he was with the Yahudim amongst the nation, he did not transgress Torah. He did not transgress Torah. This is the only thing that he did not do amongst the nations. He did not adhere to the ceremonial law because he could not. He could not, but he adhered to the law of Yahushua HaMashiach. Yet he still did not transgress Torah because indeed, again, one could not do animal offerings among the nations because the Ha'ikal, the place where Yahuwah had placed his name, was not amongst the nations. So reading here, he did not, as without Torah. Reading here, to those without Torah, as without Torah. Not being without Torah towards Elohim, so he still kept the Torah. Not being without Torah towards Elohim, but under Torah of Mashiach. Who is our offering. So as to win those who are without Torah. To the weak I became as weak, so as to win the weak. To all men I've become all, so as to save some by all means. And I do this because of the good news, so as to become a fellow partaker with it. And so Shaul also shows us here how to be living tabernacles. Being cognizant that we are amongst the nations, and being cognizant that we're going to encounter people from every walk of life. Being led by the Ruach, of course, in all circumstances, and not speaking to people whom he hasn't led us to, and not casting his pearls before swine, but understanding that we're going to encounter people from all walks of life. As Shaul did not transgress Torah, will not to transgress Torah, but we should be cognizant of where everybody is at so that we can win some. Being living tabernacles so that we can win some. This is our purpose. This is why we're scattered amongst the nations, to be living tabernacles in which the Torah is to continually burn. We're to be lights amongst the nations. We're to let our light so shine among the nations so that that light would draw men to the Yahuwah who dwells beyond the veil in the tabernacle, in the ark of the human heart. Again, in accordance with Matthew 5:16, let your light so shine before men so that they see your good works and praise your Father who is in the Shamayim. 1 Peter, the last precept, 1 Peter 2, verse 11 and 12, Kaf Alaf, 1 Peter, the 2nd chapter, verse 11 and 12. It reads here, "Beloved ones, I appeal to you as sojourners and pilgrims to abstain from fleshly lusts which battle against the being, having your behavior among the nations good, so that when they speak against you as evildoers, let them, by observing your good works, esteem Elohim in a day of visitation." In a day of visitation. Mashpaka, we are now approaching the season of Shavuot. We're indeed in the season of Shavuot. Shavuot is almost upon us. I believe that Abba Yahuwah is getting ready to do some things within his assembly on Shavuot. I believe that he is preparing his assembly to meet the bridegroom. And I believe that on Shavuot that he is going to begin to pour out a higher level of anointing upon his people. He is going to equip his people to be shalak, to be sent ones amongst the nations, to draw his wilderness, to draw his remnant people out of the nations, on board the Ark of the Covenant. And so when he sends us, we must be mindful to be living tabernacles amongst them. We must be mindful to be living tabernacles amongst them, for indeed this is our purpose, to be lights among the nations, so that through this light he will draw men out of darkness into his marvelous light, so that through this light he will reconcile the remnant of mankind back to himself. This indeed is the purpose of YAHUAH'S. This is the purpose of YAHUAH'S. So it is my belief that he's getting ready to pour out his Ruach unlike ever before, and that his remnant people are going to operate in uncommon signs and wonders, and that he is going to send us amongst the nations as living tabernacles, to draw his people, his remnant people, out of darkness into his marvelous light. But there is a preparation that must take place before that happens, and we must be laid on the proper foundation, the foundation of righteousness, which is personified in Yahushua HaMashiach. We must having been immersed in this set-apart name, whereby having our crimes washed away and our crookedness washed away, our running sores and leprosy washed away, having our menstrual cycle washed away, and having been cleansed from touching the dead things of Babylon, whereby receiving his Kadosh Ruach. Indeed, there are different levels of receiving his Ruach. There are different levels. Having received his Kadosh Ruach and walking in righteousness and truth from this foundation as best we can, and having the word cleanse us as we align ourselves with it. And as we align ourselves with it, the washing of the word cleanses us, continually cleanses us, and prepares us for that Akarit Gasham, which is to say latter rain, and prepares us to be fruit-bearing trees during a time of famine, water-producing rocks during a time of drought, light-producing lamps during a time of darkness, which prepares us to receive our Haruch, all Yahu, and in which time he will call his people out of darkness. He will, through us, turn the hearts of the fathers back to the children, and the hearts of the children back to the fathers, lest he come with utter destruction upon the earth. But it begins with this tabernacle being laid upon the proper foundation and being built up in righteousness, so that the light, the continual light of Torah, so that the eternal light, which is Yahuwah, which is Torah, can continually burn in us, so that that light will draw the remnant of mankind out of darkness into its marvelous light, and draw them back into covenant with him. So I pray that this teaching has been edifying. I pray that it has opened the eyes of some, that it has opened the ears of some, and that even now you are coming out of darkness into its marvelous light and aligning yourselves with the truth. What is truth? Thy word is truth. He is the living word. He is the truth. He is the truth. And upon this rock, upon this truth, he shall build his assembly, his tabernacle, and the gates of Shaul shall not prevail against it. And from this place we can stand confidently and boldly. We can stand firmly fixed on this rock and plead the dumb against every demonic stronghold, because the dumb breaks every demonic contract. It flows down to the root, to the root of contracts and breaks curses at the root and poisons the root. Standing on the rock, we can confidently and boldly call upon the name of Yahushua and send the reign of darkness back into the outer darkness from whence it came. Standing on this rock, we can boldly and confidently proclaim, suffer not a wish to live. Abba Yahuwah, in the name of Yahushua, cause the destroyer to come upon her or his head this day or this night. In the name of Yahushua HaMashiach, we can stand boldly and firmly upon the rock of which we have been reestablished and proclaim, let every wicked incantation and spell be turned back. It's turned back upon the head of the speaker, and let it manifest upon their heads sevenfold. Standing upon this rock, upon this foundation, we can boldly stand and confidently stand and speak the name of Yahushua and declare that any witch that astral travels from their bodies, that the silver cord would be cut and that they would be caught in that realm, never to return to their body again. Indeed, suffer not a witch to live, die in the righteous name of Yahushua HaMashiach. Standing upon this rock, we can plead the Dam, which breaks every curse, which breaks every chain, every shackle of the reign of darkness, every shackle and every chain of the reign of darkness. Yahuwah barak you and guard you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and show favor to you. Yahuwah lift up his face upon you and give you shalom. Thus you shall put my name on the children of Yasha'al, and I myself shall barak them. So be it, so be it, so be it. Shalom.